Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. So you join me at Tesla in West Drayton, London, because today is going to be a very, very cool day. Because today I am going to spend the whole day with a car I've waited to drive for a very, very long time. We can just see Ruby Roadster parked up here. No more internal combustion engine for me today, because today I'm going to be spending the day in the Tesla Model X. Let's get in, go for a drive. We're going to try and work out just what it's like to live with a Tesla Model X. This should be a good one. So, here we are behind the wheel of the Tesla Model X. Perfect silence, as you'd imagine, but the really weird thing about driving an EV that I still need to get my head around is you don't have to turn it on, you just basically put it into drive with your foot on the brake and off we go. That's it. It's just so counterintuitive, so wrong in a way. There's just not an ounce of noise. It's brilliant for filming, mind. So you may well have seen my video from last year. I got to drive a Tesla Model S from here last year. It was probably one of the first videos I did that went really, really big. And ever since then, I've been trying to get hold of the Model X. And this is one of their press cars, and they've been amazing to let me have it for the day. And it's a really, really in-demand car. I was just talking to Emma, who I've arranged the car through, and you know, it's a really in-demand car. Everybody wants to drive it. There's still a big list of journalists that want to get behind the wheel of the car. So I'm very lucky to be able to have it for a day. And the premise of the video is I want to try and spend a bit of time. Oh, you'll never get bored of that instant talk. Spend a little bit of time with the car, take it on a drive, and just kind of have a look at some of the really, really cool features of this car. Instantly, the first thing you will notice if you've never driven a Tesla before, and I don't know whether it's the same in other electric cars, but I'm sure it probably is there's a very large proportion of the braking is done regeneratively. So as you accelerate away, I mean, we'll talk more about the performance and the throttle response of this car throughout the day, I'm sure. But as you brake, you lift off the throttle, and the retardation happens straight away. You get this regenerative braking, so even before you put your foot on the brake, you're slowing down quite a lot, actually, just from the kind of regenerative braking. And I think that's something that takes a little while to get used to. The other thing that takes a little while to get used to is it's so quiet. So let's just have a bit of a chat about the specific spec of this car in terms of, if you like, what's not under the bonnet, but what's under the floor. So this is a Model X 100D, and if you're not familiar with the naming conventions of Tesla, the 100 basically refers to the capacity of the battery packs in this car, 100 kilowatt hour, and then the D stands for dual or all-wheel drive. So I've got four-wheel drive in this car, and the largest battery configuration that they've got. They do a smaller one. There's also, you can get this in a P100D, with P standing for performance, and it's when you've got the P that you have access to things like ludicrous mode. So unfortunately this car doesn't have ludicrous mode, but believe me, it's fast enough. Just can't do a review of a Tesla Model X without talking about these Falcon wing doors. If I just triple click on the button and they just open up, they are truly a work of art, and they give this exceptional access into the rear of the vehicle. And also, if you're putting the kids in or strapping someone in, you've got protection from the rain, which also comes in very, very useful. But absolutely beautiful. And then to close them, you just click on a button there, and that's them shut. How cool is that? Model X on a little bit of twisty road, and it actually performs really well. It's clearly quite a big car and a heavy car. It's got a lot of kind of batteries, but the interesting thing about the Model X and the Model S is effectively the floor of the car is batteries, so there's a lot of weight, but it's very low down, which means this car has a very low center of gravity, which is good for handling. The throttle response is something that you just don't expect when you've not driven an electric car before. The first thing you'll notice is the throttle response. Literally from any speed, it's almost an instant whiz, and it makes for really interesting driving. But yeah, from a handling point of view, this car will surprise you. I'm pretty sure. Now, I think one of the really cool things about this car is just the accessibility into the rear of the car. These Falcon wing doors just make it so easy to sit here, and I've got loads and loads of leg room. Now, this car has got the 6-seat configuration, so you can get a bench seat here with 3 seats, so that will give you 2 at the front, 3 at the back. That makes 5. Or you could have 6 seats, which is 2 either side here and 2 in the back, or obviously a bench seat and 2 in the back, which makes 7. But what I really like is if I just get in the back, it's just so easy to move around, and you can get in the back here, and I've got loads of leg room. I mean, yes, I'm a bit tied up here if I was a little person, but I just stick my legs out the front. It gives me loads and loads of leg room, quite a reasonable amount of head space. I am touching the top a little bit, but it's still really accessible. The other thing this car has is 4 ISOFIX points. So basically on all of these rear seats you've got ISOFIX points for kiddie seats. So it's such a family oriented car. So if you've got your kids and you want the practicality of getting them in and out quickly, that's where this car comes up trumps, I think. So what I can also do, if I just open up the tailgate, is when you look at this you think, well, it's not actually a huge size boot, but we have got the 2 seats in the back, so there's just a little button just on the side there. You just hit that and you push it forward, and you've now got, if I do the same on this side, you've now got actually a fairly large size load area. So if you had the 5-seat variant, you wouldn't have these 2 seats in the back anyway, so you'd have a really large boot space. And one thing you can't get, which I think would be a really good idea, is there's no way of having some kind of cargo net or load sort of breakthrough there to stop stuff flying in there. So you've got your weekly shopping in the boot, you have to brake hard, and it all ends up in the floor well of the second row of seats. So some kind of safety net across there would be a really good idea, and I believe you can't currently get one of those. So Tesla designers, if you're watching, that was my idea. Call it the Petrol Ped food stop or something. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put this full screen for a moment. So we're basically going to go and do some charge. So even though, if I have a look on here, I've got probably 155 miles of range left, I'm actually going to go and find a supercharging station. So we're parked just near Windsor Great Park, a place called Virginia Water. So if I just click on this button down the bottom here, I can do a search for all my different superchargers, and the supercharger I'm going to go to is this one just here. So it's basically going to calculate the route to the supercharger. How far have we got to go there? So it's only 36 miles. So that's where we're going to go. Bit of motorway driving and go and get some supercharge. While we're driving to South Mimms, a couple of things about the inside of this car which are interesting and worth noting. The first one is this front windscreen. So this is the largest single piece of glass windscreen of any car in production today. It stretches from above my head all the way down to the bonnet, and it gives immense amounts of visibility. It's got like a kind of graded sunscreen in it, so you don't get too much glare, which is good. My only criticism of it is, and it's actually not really to do with the windscreen, it's to do with the rear view mirror. The rear view mirror is just not very big, and it's quite difficult to position to get a decent view out the back. So the only downside of doing this route is I'm on the M25 and it is its normal car park state. Couple of things worth noting though as I'm going along. On the sat nav, obviously it gives you things like ETA, but it also gives you your estimated charge state when you get to the charging station. So I've currently got 144 miles of range left, and when I get to the charging station I'll have 37% of battery life, which I think is quite useful. The other things I've got is on my display in front of me. I've basically got a, rather than a miles per gallon or fuel consumption, I've got an energy consumption. So in the past 30 miles I've been averaging 396 watts per mile. And the interesting thing on a motorway is actually I'm not really using the brake very much at all. It's sufficient in this kind of stop-start traffic just to lift off the throttle and let the regenerative braking stop the car. It's that effective. Okay, we have arrived at South Mim services, so the next thing we've got to do is find the Tesla Superchargers. God, traffic was pants. Don't know what gave me the bright idea to travel on the M25, but anyway, I normally avoid it at all costs. But let's go and find the Supercharger, get this car some juice, and I could do with a coffee. Wow, do you know what? My day is so bad, I've even got traffic jam in the car park. So I'm basically going to go the wrong way, I don't care. I've found the Superchargers. They are tucked away in a corner. I'm going to go up the road where I'm not meant to. Ta-da! Found them. I can't believe how difficult that was. Right, let's get parked up and get some juice in this baby. Just a thing to note when you're searching for your Supercharger, which I think is really, really cool, is you get a list of all the nearby ones on the left hand side. But when you actually find one on a map, if we just zoom into that one, you can kind of see there's a number of little red bars. That's how many of the stations currently have a car charging in them. So if we go to the one where we are at the moment, you can see there that there are currently no cars parked, which is correct because you can have a look round. We are the only Tesla in the Supercharge station. So in order to do some charging, if I just type controls down there, and then charging up here, and then I can do open the charge port, and that's going to basically pop the little port open on the back, and we can start doing some charging. So you've got a little charge port just here by the rear light cluster. So I guess it's time to do my first ever Tesla Supercharge. So you plug this puppy in. Nice click, green flash, and we're charging. I've now come back inside the car and you can see the Supercharger is in place. So we've currently got an hour and 10 minutes to wait if we wanted a full charge. So while the Model X has a bit of a supercharge, you might just be able to make it out just over in the right hand corner over there. I thought I would stop for a bit of a Starbucks and just have a chat about the whole charging process. So when I reviewed the Model S, all the superchargers were free basically. You could turn up, charge your car, it wouldn't cost you anything. They've changed that policy now so that there is a charge, but every Tesla owner has 1,000 miles of supercharging free every year, and then after that they pay a small amount to recharge the car. And the idea with that was to invest some money back into the infrastructure. But that's not the primary way most Tesla owners will charge their car. Everyone's going to have basically a charging station at home, and you drive your car home at night, plug it in, and overnight, in a process of maybe 5 hours or so, your car will fully charge and you'll wake up with a car with over 300 miles of range if it's a 100D like the one I've got. And it costs you, a really small amount of money. You're talking a small amount of pounds, £4 or £5 for a full charge. So you've got home charging, which is your most likely charging, supercharging, and really that's there if you're going to do a long journey. If you program a route into SatNav and it's further than the range of your car, the SatNav will automatically reroute you round a supercharger, and you can get, you know, a pretty good charge in half an hour, full charge in about an hour, just enough time to get some Starbucks. And then finally, new since I last drove a Tesla is what's called destination charging points, and they are at things like hotels and spas and places where you would actually maybe go for a weekend. So you'd go to a hotel, they'd have a destination charge, you could plug your car in, and while you were there you could have a recharge and be able to drive home. So that's the 3 different ways you're going to charge your car. Okay, so that's me all done, so let me just push on that, it clicks, out it comes, put it back up there, and we are now done with a fully recharged, because I need to get back to the Tesla showroom, but that's certainly enough juice just to give me a little bit more range. Now, even though this car is not fitted with ludicrous mode, it still has a ridiculous 0 to 60. So it would be rude of me not to at least give it a go. 3, 2, 1, go. 60. Still pretty rapid. It's not going to beat the Model S that I did, but that was 2.8 seconds, but that's with the ludicrous mode. So it's still a really, really quick car. And I guess we do need to have a chat about the price of this vehicle, however. So this 100D variant is in the kind of region of around about 105 to 110,000 pounds. It depends on which options you put on it. If you went for the P100D with the performance pack and the ludicrous mode, you could be nudging 150,000 quid, which is a huge amount of money, and bangs this kind of electric SUV right up against things like Range Rovers and that kind of level of car. Now, this is no Range Rover. The interior is lovely, but it's not a Range Rover. But it does have some advantages. You know, the servicing is minimal. There's no engine, so, you know, apart from things like tyres and brakes, there's no real servicing. Running costs are going to be relatively low if you charge at home. You know, you can fill up a full tank of electricity for, you know, £5. You've got no road tax and those types of things at the moment anyway. So, you know, the running costs are there. There's an interesting question about residual value. Talking to Chris, who I did the McCann film with recently, there's quite a lot of the finance companies will struggle to kind of work out how to give you finance on this because they're worried about residual value, because the battery life on these, although Tesla quote, you know, quite a long time, sort of 8 years or so, at the end of that you still need to replace the batteries. But looking at the Tesla example finance thing in the showroom today, you know, the residual value after 4 years, there's still sort of guarantee about 55,000 quid on one of these, which is pretty good. But that is actually only with 10,000 miles a year, which maybe that isn't so good. So they are a lot of money. They will, I'll guess they'll kind of appeal to a certain demographic. They are brilliant if you've got a family. The accessibility in the rear for this car is amazing. You've got the practicality of a big SUV, but far, far more accessibility than any of the kind of 7-seat SUVs I've been in. It really is super. Those Falcon wing doors are absolutely genius. So what are my final impressions of this car? Well, I wanted to approach this video slightly differently, why I called it Living with a Tesla Model X. I wanted to do some miles in it. I wanted to really see if having an electric vehicle is a viable proposition if you're going to do miles. And I kind of need to apologise, that's why I haven't had lots of shots with cameras stuck on the outside of the car and so on, because I've just been on the kind of roads where, to be quite frank, I don't want to stick cameras on the outside in case they fall off. So apologies for the lack of camera angles, but it's certainly been a very, very interesting day. I'm massively impressed by a great deal to do with this car. I think the performance is great. I would love to drive the performance version with the ludicrous mode. I can imagine that's an absolute riot. The accessibility and space inside this car quite frankly, is like no other car I've been in. It certainly trumps its rivals. If you put this SUV up against the likes of Range Rovers and Discoveries and even things like XC90s and so on, there's loads of accessibility in the back, loads of space. You've got a huge boot at the back, you've got obviously a big boot at the front as well. So there's a lot of things to like. Things I don't like, you know, these cars get an awful lot of comments about their build quality and choice of materials, and honestly, sat in the driver's seat right now, I honestly don't know where those comments come from. The quality of materials, and I think it's excellent in here. Whether I could live with white leather seats, I don't think I could. I'm not a big fan of the driver's seat, if I'm honest. It could do with a bit more lumbar support, and I just haven't really managed to feel comfortable in it all day. And I don't really like the lack of visibility from that rear view mirror. That's my favourite mirror to kind of check what's behind me, and I'm really struggling with that. I have been all day. But apart from that, you know, there's not a great deal not to like about this car. So I'm going to finish my video there. I need to say a huge thank you to Emma at Tesla in West Drayton, because she actually came with me when I did the Model S review almost, well, a year ago now. It was an accompanied drive, so to let me go out on my own in this car is a real privilege, and I know there's a big queue of reviewers and journalists who want to get access to this car, so it's been a very special day. And I kind of hope you've enjoyed the slightly different look at things and sort of really exploring some of the challenges around owning an electric vehicle. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have done so, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. Maybe next time a little bit more petrol fueled. But anyway, you take care, guys. Drive safe.